The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm here with Dave Ramos. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
So Dave, you have 40 years or so expertise, sales, marketing, strategy. You've now run your own consulting business for about 12 years. And when I look at kind of what you've accomplished and the clients you've worked with, they include the American Red Cross, Long & Foster, Remax, and you've helped some of these companies to even quadruple in size, others double in size, help them to win awards like the best place to work. And now you are the CEO of Shift Points, but your title is also Chief Alignment Officer. I know you're really big on this keyword of alignment. So tell us, what does a Chief Alignment Officer really do? And what does the word alignment mean to you?
Well, thank you, Michael. And we've been privileged to have the success we've had with our clients. And when I started the consulting business, all of my clients were small companies. And so while the original premise of the business was alignment, really that wasn't their main problem. Their primary problem in our experience was that they were unfocused and undifferentiated. And so a lot of our early work with our first wave of clients was helping them, getting them to be intensely focused and clearly differentiated. And I wrote a book about this called Decide One Thing, which the basic premise is, you have to find that one thing that you can be better than any of your competitors at doing. And that's the thing that really unleashes that. But what we learned, Michael, is that as these companies grow and as we started to work with bigger companies, then alignment became much more of a strategic issue for them. And so the practice has evolved, and now it's really the core of our focus is helping people and companies stay aligned.
Yeah. So I really want to dig into that in terms of like how you got to where you are and what you're currently working on today. But, you kind of mentioned that early on, you weren't necessarily like the clients you're working with weren't actually thinking about alignment. Were you talking about alignment even back then? So you were kind of saying one thing, but the marketplace was wanting something else, or were you focusing on something else when you first launched?
Well, the original code name of the business was aligned.org. In fact, alignment was the focus from the beginning. But Michael, I'm kind of an accidental consultant. I came into the consulting business after 6 years of working at a church, which is not the typical launching pad for a consulting business. And to be honest with you, I struggled with that transition from working in the church to being back in the business world. And the clients that I was able to find early on were small companies that knew me from just my network and being around and brought me in to help them with their businesses. But the original idea was aligned.
Got it. And because, your background is executive level positions at IBM, Nortel. I think you're a global marketing, VP of global marketing there. What was that transition like for you? So, you came out of the corporate world, you then went into nonprofit. And then after the nonprofit, you started dipping your toes back into kind of the business world. It makes sense that the first few clients came from just your network and connections that you had likely built up in the corporate world back in those days, but also maybe nonprofit and community. But that's still like a lot of people know people, but that doesn't necessarily turn into their first few clients. So what was that transition really like for you when you decide, okay, I'm this accidental kind of consultant, I want to get back into building a business? What was that transition like for you to actually now start getting clients? Was it a challenge for you? Was it quite easy and straightforward and clients just came to you? Just walk us through what those early days were like.
Yes. And so I started by trying to buy a consulting firm, and I lost twice in bidding wars. And so I was faced with having to start one myself.
Sorry to jump in, but why did you want to buy a consulting firm?
Well, I felt like it would be easier to scale something that existed than create something from scratch. Because really my expertise, as you pointed out, was working in larger companies. I didn't really think of myself as a kind of blank sheet of paper, start from zero entrepreneur. I saw myself as somebody who was really more skilled at scaling an existing enterprise. So when we lost in the process of trying to buy the company, Essentially, I hung out a shingle as an independent consultant. I reached out to a couple of CEOs that I knew. Both of them engaged me. So I started on Monday, and by Wednesday, I had 2 clients.
You identified, was it 2 different consulting firms that you wanted to purchase, or it was just one that you kind of made multiple bids for?
It's one, and I lost. That deal fell through. I bid again, and I lost again.
And what were you, like the price you were looking at? I mean, you don't have to say the exact number, but are we talking about low 6 figures, high 6 figures, 5 figures? What kind of investment were you prepared to make?
Yeah, so this was a consulting business that was doing around $1.2 million in revenue. Okay. And they were looking to sell the business for about 1 times revenue, which I thought was extremely high. Mm-hmm. And so, we bid, I think probably the number was around $750 for the business. And
do you remember what kind of margin that business had?
Oh, it's a long time ago, but then we felt like that was a reasonable price. And then we lost in that first round. It came back around. I think we ended up offering maybe $850 the second time around, and we lost it again. But, this is the tricky thing of valuing consulting businesses. And so for some of your subscribers and your fans that are ultimately looking to sell their business, it's a tricky thing to sell. In the case that I'm talking about, the 2 founders did not want to hang around. They wanted to sell it and run. And so obviously that affected the price I was willing to pay. If they would have been willing to stay around for, let's say, 2 years, I would have offered them more, obviously, because my risk premium, would have changed.
Got you. That makes sense. Yeah, we've had a few other people on the show, Laurie Kleiman, John Orlo, who have talked about selling their consulting businesses and challenges that come with that. Looking back kind of with hindsight, knowing what you know now, if you were starting again, would you still try and buy another consulting business, or was the right place you ended up in terms of just building your own?
Well, I still think that buying a business is a good option, especially for people that don't, they take that long, hard look in the mirror and they say, I'm not a blank sheet of paper entrepreneur. I'm an improver. It would be easier for me to take something that's up and running and exists. Because the fact of the matter is, building a consulting business is really, really hard. It's a lot of work. You have to develop a methodology. You have to develop a perspective. You have to develop solutions. You have to find clients. You have to deliver the work. You got to pay the bills, and you got to clean the coffee pot, which is why many consultants are working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. They maybe got into it as thinking it was a lifestyle business. But at least for me, that hasn't been true.
Got it. So now let's go back to where I just jumped in and cut you off there. You're saying, so you made some calls to these CEOs that you knew. You told them what you were now kind of embarking on in terms of hanging out your shingle and becoming a consultant. They gave you some work. You went to work. What happened after those 2 clients? How did you get the next clients in the door?
Well, it's a great question, because after my 3 days in the business, having 2 clients, I figured, we're good. We're on our way. But in fact, it was much more difficult to find the next wave of clients than I expected to be. Matter of fact, I came to joke that I described selling consulting. I said it's like selling colonoscopies. The CEOs that I would call, like, no, I think we're good. We don't really need anybody poking around right now. Maybe next year. Okay. And so one of the things I had to learn, Michael, I had to learn how to sell consulting because I had not been in the consulting business in my career before. And frankly, I didn't know how to sell it, and I didn't really know how to be a consultant. I was used to being an executive, which is very different.
Yeah. So walk us through, what does that mean? I mean, you learn how to sell consulting services. To you, what does that look like? What have you kind of found? If you could break down for us the best practices that you've kind of accumulated over these last 12 years that are just been proven to work exceptionally well, what do they look like? What does that process look like?
Yes. So what we have done is developed an initial offering that is priced at between 10 and 15,000.
Yep.
Okay. And we call it the Pit Stop program. For us, it's a strategic offsite meeting where we help the companies refine their strategy and identify what are the things on the dashboard that aren't working so well that we need to fix. And, we facilitate that. And I have found that it's much easier for the CEO to say, we have brought in Dave to help us with our strategic planning meeting. Because frankly, we don't have time to run it. As opposed to having that CEO say, we hired a consultant to ostensibly tell us how to run the business. We're the guys running it now. And who is this guy? Why does he think he knows better?
Yeah, this is so powerful, right? Because you're talking really about like the coaching clients that we work with, the consultants. We call it a discovery offering, right? I'm sure other people refer to it as well, but it makes the decision-making process so much easier because it's tangible. It's not a $50,000 or a $500,000 engagement, right? It's something that's easy to kind of put into a box to understand. There's less financial and time risk associated. So that makes a lot of sense. And I love how you branded. I want to talk more about kind of the branding that you've done with your naming. What do you then do with that? So you now have that program. It's very tangible. It makes sense. They want to bring you in to kind of run the strategic planning session rather than them having to figure out how to do it. Then what? How do you get that? How do you get the yes for that? And how do you approach them even for that idea?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, they're having the meeting. They're having the strategic planning meeting. So the only question for them is, are they going to do it themselves or are they going to have somebody come and help them? So they're having the meeting. They already have it on the calendar. So there's in effect a tangible date, a tangible offer that we make, a clear price point, and we call it productizing your service. And of course, we branded it. You know, I spent half my life as a chief marketing officer. So, you know, we worked really hard on the branding of this. And the Pit Stop program is a trademark of mine. So, you know, it's one of the things we could explore further is the trademarking and the protection of your intellectual property.
It's on the list to ask you, Dave. So we're going to come to that for sure. I think you've done a great job there. Yeah.
The Pit Stop program is a registered trademark of Shift Points, my company. And we have found that this makes it easy to sell and easy to buy because it feels like a thing. As you said, it's tangible. It's a reasonable price point. It solves a problem that they have. And it's really a make versus buy. We could run the meeting ourselves or we can hire these guys to help us.
So I just want to break that down for a moment. You've done a great job at explaining the value of this and why it actually works, right? In terms of kind of the mindset of the buyer. How are you approaching them? Are you, picking up the phone and calling them? Are you going to networking meetings or events? Are you writing in trade publications? I mean, I know you have some books. We'll talk about that in a few minutes here, but how are you actually getting in front of the decision makers to even be able to tell them or to ask them the question, are you running your strategic planning sessions yourself or would you like someone to come in and help you with that?
Yeah. So over the course of the years, we've built up a list. We use HubSpot as our marketing automation platform. And, we have a clear offer that goes out to people. And a lot of our work comes from referrals, people that know us or whatnot. And then it's a matter of, that initial sales call where we can explain to the CEO, look, we do this for a living. We run these kind of meetings for a living. We've done hundreds of them now. Okay. And really for you, the sell is this is an extremely important meeting, number one. It's probably the most expensive meeting you're going to have if you add up the executive's time. And it's critical that this meeting accomplish the objectives. And we'll typically joke about, what happens in a strategic planning meeting that the company runs, where a group of executives show up in a conference room, they write a bunch of stuff on flip chart paper, and then they go to the bar. I mean, that's the typical planning meeting.
Right.
And so everybody chuckles about that, but that's typically what happens.
Right. They can see the value through that kind of illustration or that kind of image.
Correct.
Got you.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching Program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
Back to the marketing point there for a moment. So you use HubSpot, right? That's really entailing. So there's content marketing going on. So if I'm understanding you correctly, aside from the relationships that you've built up, you've done things in terms of content on your website that has brought people to the website. You're then offering them different things, which then you're capturing their email address, and then you're able to build your list that way. And so the offers that you're making, aside from the referrals or maybe the connections you already have with people, it's through the email newsletters or kind of emails that you send out to people. And that then generates an initial phone call with them if they're interested. And that's where you have this conversation.
Correct. We're also very active on social media, LinkedIn in particular.
What are you doing on LinkedIn that's working for you?
We publish articles on LinkedIn. Well, over the last 90 days, we've been publishing an article every day because we're doing work around the book promotion. But normally we publish a weekly article, which is about strategy and alignment, the two things we typically focus on. And, we're also actively posting things, liking other people's work, trying to build relationships with people, kind of socially on LinkedIn. And that's been effective as well.
And when you say we, who are you referring to? Is this an outside kind of like external content team? Is it your internal team? Is it you? While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Yes, it's me and one assistant that I have that's helping me primarily with the social media stuff.
Got it. And I saw from your website, you have kind of like a partner portal where you can, I guess, certify or bring consultants into, teach them your methodologies and your approach. Just tell us kind of what that looks like. And I'm really interested to find out how that has impacted your business.
Well, so this is something we're just launching, the partner program. And I think we got to a place where we had to say, how do we scale the business? And there is the traditional approach where you hire associates and we have partners and associates and we're worried about everybody's billable hours and something like that. There's the consulting franchise, and there's a number of, consulting franchises or businesses that kind of operate like a franchise.
I know what you mean. Sure. Yeah.
Vistage might be one, as an example.
Or Action Coach or something.
Or Action Coach, or these where, rather than starting from scratch, people can join that. Our model is different. Really, I think what we're focused on is taking the 12 years of intellectual property, the brand, the methodology, the how we sell, and licensing the platform to consultants on a fixed monthly subscription basis. So the point would be, Michael, if you're going to start a consulting business, there's a long list of things you have to do. You have to build a brand, you have to get trademarks, you have to develop methodology, PowerPoint templates, sales proposals. There's 100 things on your to-do list, and you can either spend 12 years developing those yourself, or you can write us a check and have it tomorrow.
Right. So that makes sense for someone who really feels the alignment, right, with what you're doing and the area that you're focusing on. So you're kind of taking, like, they can check off the whole methodology and how to kind of engage with clients and have the right materials, the right kind of IP that they can just plug in rather than having to develop that themselves if there's a fit there.
Yes, that's right. And then in addition, they get to leverage the monthly kind of corporate marketing air cover we provide, whether it's, LinkedIn, Twitter, the blog, the HubSpot platform, the email outbound campaigns, and all the other things that we're doing. And again, the value proposition to a consultant would be, you can do all that yourself. Again, or you can just, if you like the Shift Points brand, you like the framework, if you're passionate about strategic alignment, then this might be a good fit for you. And it might be better than the kind of go it alone and do it yourself option, which people are pursuing.
Got you. Okay. So that's kind of just getting started. Not much in terms of the impact on the business yet, because it's still early days. We've talked, Dave, a fair bit about branding and coming from the corporate world and kind of some senior executive positions at large organizations, technology organizations. You clearly have a knack for branding. You value it. You've copyrighted, I think, maybe even more than one trademark, more than one term. But you have like the jump stop program, the pit stop program, and the top gear program, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So you're very intentionally developed these names, which I love. And I think, I'm in alignment with you using that word there again. But explain to everyone why you did that. Why not just call it, we do strategic planning workshops.
So great question. A key reason was that I wanted to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. So let me say it this way. There's dozens of other companies that might do strategic planning. We're the only one that has the pit stop program. Not only is that a registered trademark of ours, that's our brand. We own that brand. Okay. And it makes it sound, I think, more tangible, more differentiated, more like a productized offering. And in fact, it is. And then, we talked about the pit stop program being the entree offering, but obviously my goal was to turn a one-time sale into a long-term retainer. And so that's where we developed the brand called the Top Gear program. The idea is you come out of the pits, we're going to shift your company into top gear, it's the racing imagery, and it works for us. It's fun. The clients like it. And that has worked very, very well for us. Back to that pit stop meeting where we write a bunch of ideas on flip chart paper. But at the end of the day, we have to actually implement those ideas. We can't just leave the flip chart paper rolled up, or maybe somebody types them up and nothing happens. So really the Top Gear program is we provide ongoing strategic advice and coaching and sometimes the kick in the rear that they need to actually implement the things that we wrote on the flip chart paper, and we hold them accountable.
And Dave, when do you do that? Because many consultants will, understand the discovery offer, kind of the initial offer going into the larger kind of engagement itself. But I often get questions from clients around, when do you suggest that I bring that up? What does the transition look like? So in your experience, what have you found to be the best way to, when you're working with a client in that initial engagement, to then bring up and move them into the Top Gear, and in your case, the Top Gear program? Are you having that conversation even before you do the pit stop program? Or are you doing it at the end of the first day of the pit stop program? Are you doing it afterwards? When are you talking about and really moving them into that next larger engagement?
Well, we included in the proposal of the pit stop program, we include a reference to it so that they know it's not just the pit stop and that's it.
Do you include the pricing of the Top Gear program at that point? Or?
Typically not, but because the pricing will depend on how much help they need, but we'll talk about that. Really, our ultimate goal is not to run a strategic planning meeting. Our ultimate goal is to transform their business and accelerate their growth and help them achieve their goals. Okay. And so it's in the mix from day one. Where we came up with this, though, was one of the very first pit stops I ever did. Literally at the bar after the meeting, the executives went to the CEO and said, boy, can we have Dave hang around for a little while to help us implement all this stuff? And so they asked for it. And that was how I came up with the idea of then kind of positioning this kind of two-part offering, the pit stop and the Top Gear. And it depends, Michael, in terms of when do I ask for the sale? But for every pit stop, there's kind of if you will, a post-mortem where I'll meet with the CEO and say, how did it go? And where are we on things? And that gives me an opportunity to be back in front of them and say, I'd love to keep working with you. And can we structure an arrangement that meets your budget requirements where I can provide the right kind of help so that we implement those ideas?
That kind of follow-up with the CEO, are you scheduling that always beforehand? So okay, on Wednesday we're doing the strategic workshop together, the pit stop, and then on Monday of next week we're going to have a phone call to kind of debrief. Is that planned beforehand?
Well, if I was Jill Conrath, I probably would be as structured in my sales process as that. I confess it hasn't always been that disciplined, but that's something that I think we can improve on. And so it's a great question, and add something onto my to-do list to make sure that meeting happens.
Because it's so key, right? And what we always see process of working with clients and what we see with our clients as well when they're out there is if you lose that momentum, right, the longer that it takes to kind of schedule that meeting or come back and debrief, you've just lost a bit of that momentum and the excitement and the freshness that has just happened. So if you can make it happen sooner, typically leads to higher levels of success in terms of that next engagement.
Yes, it's a great point. And, note to self for me to do a better job in terms of how we're structuring that follow-on conversation and the timing of it and the discipline around it. But yeah, because, at the end of the day, you have to, for us, our business has been a mix of these pit stop meetings with the long-term engagements. Okay, we're on a given month, we might have a pit stop and then a couple of the long-term top gear programs running at the same time. And, just trying to juggle, like how many clients can you juggle at the same time?
Definitely. So Dave, question for you. I mean, you've now been doing this for 12 years. You've been building up the business. You're looking at ways to scale. What has been one of the most kind of recent challenges that you feel you've just been facing? You've been thinking about, how do I tackle this? And just a priority for you. What kind of stands out right now as a recent one that you've already overcome or something that you're actively thinking about right now?
Well, we're in the process, as I mentioned, of launching this partner program. And I'll tell you, this will be our third attempt.
Okay.
So I started this idea early on because I felt like it was the right way for me personally to scale the business.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple of consultants signed up right away. And for various reasons, they all washed out. They couldn't sell. They couldn't do the work. They didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to sell, or they just wanted to decide they were going to go get a job. And then I tried a second effort right after the launch of my book, Decide One Thing, which is a little over 5 years ago. And again, we had a similar experience where we got a couple of people that are interested, signed up and didn't work and washed out. So this was going to be our third attempt. So we've changed the business model, as I mentioned, to now it's a subscription-based model as opposed to a percent of revenue. We changed a bunch of the other things about it. And, obviously I've spent 5 more years developing the intellectual property, the brand, the methodology, the trademarks, written another book. There's a lot more that we can offer to people than I had, either 8 years ago or 5 years ago in our 2 previous attempts.
Got you. Well, when we wrap up here in just a minute, I have someone that you might want to speak with that could maybe help in that area a little bit or add some value for you. But I want to make sure people can learn more about your work, Dave, and also your books. Your latest is Drive One Direction. You studied over 300 companies and interviewed over 100 CEOs. I think there's a lot of value that people can get from diving into that, but also just kind of, learn about your company, see your branding live in terms of going to your website. So maybe just for everyone listening, tell them where should they go to learn more about you, your books, and your work?
Yeah, so the company's name is Shift Points, like shifting a car, shiftpoints.com. And that's the best place to go. And you'll see all of the things that we talked about in terms of the pit stop and the Top Gear program and how we've structured the brand and that. You'll also see the books. And as you mentioned, the latest book's called Drive One Direction. I'll tell you, when I started the company, Michael, one of my advisors sat me down and he said to me, Dave, you need to develop a methodology and you need to write a book. Now, as I said, I'd never been a consultant before, so I had no idea about any kind of methodology. And I'd never really written anything. I was in sales and marketing. I didn't really write anything. Plus, I was an accounting major, so I didn't barely write any papers in college. So it took a while for me to develop the discipline of writing. And I started writing a blog that was published every Monday. And so after a couple of years, I had 150 blog posts. So okay, I got some material to work with in terms of a book. And so my first book called Shift Points was simply a compilation of my 100 best blogs. The next book, Decide One Thing, was about how do you differentiate yourself? And again, it was all the lessons from my first 5 years of consulting around differentiation and focus. And it was really written for a small company CEO, maybe like that's got to $1 million in revenue and is starting to realize, okay, there's a lot more competition and I have to differentiate myself. Okay. And as we've been in the business, the longer we've been in the business, the larger the size of the clients we've been working with. So early on, they were 10-person companies with $1 million revenue. Now they're more likely to be billion-dollar companies. And now their issue is alignment. Because here's what happens, Michael, is as companies grow, they create divisions. But divisions, by definition, divide. Right. And so the trick for companies, especially in this scale up stage, let's call it between either 10 and 100 million or 100 and a billion, as they're making this move from being a one product company that might work in one office and serve one market segment into a company that maybe now has 2 or 3 offices or 5 offices around the country. They have a second product line. Now they have a second general manager. They have a second P&L. So now they got a business with 2 P&Ls or 3 P&Ls. And then they expand to Europe. And what happens is that if you don't build the alignment foundation into the business really from day one, these companies grind to a halt because their internal silos become so dysfunctional that eventually, often an outside CEO needs to come in and bring everybody back into alignment. And there's a big organizational restructuring to say, okay, we have to be one team. And that's what this latest book was about. And I had a lot of fun doing the research, a couple thousand hours probably at work. And we're excited about what's happening with the new book so far.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're going to make sure that all that's linked up in the show notes here. Dave, thanks again so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Michael, great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.